yacht, sail and salty breeze. A beautiful picture from a romantic tale a young soul craves for. For most of the yearning for adventure dies out over the years. So here is the story of a dream come true, full of adventures, danger and hope. A story that can be continued forever. Everything started from a piece of paper, a manuscript with a picture of a 13th century ship. The replica of the merchant ship from the Armenian kingdom of Cilicia came into existence in the late 20th century. It took 15 long years for the ship to get from the drawing to the sea waters. The capital of Armenia, Yerevan, is a city located at an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters above sea level. It is recorded as the home port. Led by Captain Karen Balayan, the ship Cilicia sailed the seven seas around Europe. Not only the crazy idea became a reality, but it also became the beginning of an even more fantastic one about sailing around the world. While on board the Cilicia, Serge Sargsyan, then Defense Minister of Armenia, signed and approved the future route of the first in the Armenian history circumnavigation. Dear compatriots, this is my last report from the deck of Cilicia, but I think not the last from an Armenian ship. Armenia today needs phenomena like this. For the last several decades, there have been only 5 circumnavigations. It is very symbolic that we, Armenians, embarked on this journey around the world. Because for landlocked Armenia, this is a breakthrough to a dream. In our sailing club in Batumi, where I grew up, all the guys had the same dream. Sailing around the world is almost every boy's dream. Musher and I went in for sailing sport and always wanted to sail in the open sea. Step by step, the idea became clear and feasible. The yacht was bought, team recruited, the routes compiled, maps revised. The members of the expedition decided to arrange the route not just for a regular journey around the world, but to include visits to Armenian communities in vast diaspora. That were on the route or even not exactly on it. The journey to diaspora in search of scattered Armenian destinies started. The moment you hoist the sail and go out into international waters, you go beyond the narrow national framework. First day, when you sail out into the sea, after the long expectation, you work hard, prepare the ship, and then finally hoist the sail. On 28th of May in 2008, the yacht Armenia sailed out from the Spanish port Valencia to the gates of the Old World to Gibraltar. Armenia sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to North America, passed through the Panama Canal to Pacific Ocean and reached California. Then she sailed back through the canal and continued the way along the eastern shore of South America. After visiting Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina, the expedition passed Cape Horn and the Strait of Magellan and headed to Chile. On the way to New Zealand, the expedition stopped at Easter Island. Then they headed to Australia, followed by Indonesia and India. After that, the yacht sailed across the Red Sea and reached Egypt. Entering the waters of Mediterranean Sea, the expedition ended the journey on 10th of August in 2011. The journey, which lasted 2 years, had too many scattered stories to be fully covered in our film. All the stories were included in Zori Balayan's book Armenia from Sea to Sea, and the expedition became available worldwide. What do we know about the journey? There is, of course, the romantic side. The sail full of wind, salty sea breeze, gorgeous sunsets, dolphins escorting the ship. At the same time, it is just 20 meters of the deck, storm, the struggle of brave people with great ocean, storm, 8 members of the crew and loneliness and storm, storm, storm. Too many of them. Maybe we were a storm. A people from mountains trying to tame the ocean. The waves almost 10 meters high, strong wind. Every beat of the waves is very dangerous for the ship. If a huge wave hits the side of the ship, it can overturn the ship. For me, there wasn't a most frightening storm. If there was one, we probably wouldn't be back home. Ocean is ocean. Every 3-4 days, it storms. There comes a moment during the storm when you are so busy you don't even have time to think what could happen. Then, after the storm passes, you understand how bad it would be if something happened, and you would never be able to tell anyone about it. There was no time to fear because instead of being scared, we were busy saving the ship and the crew members who were not on duty. At that time, there is no fear. You start doing what you have to. And afterwards, when you remember and realize what has happened, that's when you get really scared. It is scary when you cannot do anything and something inconceivable is happening around you. Then you can get really scared. But if you can work with the scary phenomenon itself, you have nothing to fear. The route was mapped out to include small parts of Armenia, the communities of diaspora. This route is unique and it is literally absolutely Armenian. There was even made a huge loop from the Atlantic Ocean through the Panama Canal to the Pacific Ocean. And all this for the sake of one of the largest diaspora of the United States. Initially, difficult route was complicated further, but it was impossible to get around California. After all, for a meeting with the Armenians of the world, the yacht Armenia bore the symbols of all Armenians, the Holy Cross, the letters of the Armenian alphabet, a handful of Armenian land, the flag of independent Armenia, and the image of Saint Mesrop Mashtots. We are the children of the Armenian Apostolic Church. Save the language, but do not assume that if for some reason you have forgotten the language, you are no longer Armenians. It is not by chance that the expedition is named after Mesrop Mashtots. Mr. Balayan proposed a specific set of symbols which should be displayed on the board. He contacted one of the richest people in America and he ordered a tricolor sail. By the time we were leaving, this flag was brought aboard. The idea of tricolored sail belonged to Mr. Balayan. He wanted us to have a sail flag, which would symbolize our country and would move us forward. People came to meet us and they should see the flags of the Republic of Armenia. Nagorno-Karabakh, the Armenian Apostolic Church, and Yerevan. As any ship is required to have a home port, it had symbolic meaning.
Այսպես ասած, ռուսերեն ասեմ port pripyski, որտեղ է ինքը գրանցված։ Եվ դա անպայման է եղել։ Սա խորհրդանիշ էր։ Անպայման
The pictures of our mothers were always in our cabins. Deviation from the route. Risky and difficult route of the sailing has changed more than once. New towns were included in the journey. When passing by the Canary Islands, we discovered that there is a unique observatory with modern equipment on the island of Las Palmas. 10 countries own the observatory. We saw the Armenian flag, and Armenian was in the first place not only because of the alphabetical order. We changed the route, schedule, stopped there to find out everything about it. After all, very few people know about this. Another deviation from the route happened in Brazil. It was necessary to visit the city of Fortaleza in order not to miss this small but important piece of Armenia, the local Armenian diaspora. From the east coast of South America, the yacht made a loop to the west coast to visit Chile. Another unplanned deviation from the route. We didn't plan to visit Chile, but got an email from there where they asked not to miss them and not to sail by. We had to stop there. How many of you arrived here? My husband, my son, and I.
Hey, I give you my mail.
It is Armenian land here, so we went around Italy, reached London. We were lucky enough to visit the Holy Easter Island along the way. It takes 10 to 12 days to travel to the island from the coast of Chile. The ship sailed this way and that way.
or
10 days in a row, and it becomes usual. Almost 300 years ago, the island was discovered by Europeans. It happened on the day of the Christian Easter. That is how the island got its name. For the seafarers all over the world, this island, as well as Cape Horn, is a special milestone. It is the end point for courage, will, and distance from home. According to sailors, this piece of land is so far from the mainland, it seems that the nearest land is the moon. On Easter Island, there is a signpost with distances to various points on Earth. And following the tradition, our sailors have added another plate there. Now everyone who visits Easter Island will know how many kilometers is the distance to Yerevan and Stepanakert. When sailing to New Zealand, the storm started, and up ahead there was a strong tornado. We didn't know how we were going to pass it. The way doubled, the stocks of food and water might not be enough. In itself, a tornado is a very beautiful thing. When I was shooting it, I knew that I needed to film the crew, do close-ups, show their emotions. I was aware of it, but still couldn't turn away from the sight. We had the feeling of overcoming difficulties every time entering yet another port. We didn't know what was awaiting us. And in every port, you feel proud that overcame another test. When we reached Acapulco, we went to the supermarket and bought 2 large bottles of tequila, the ones with handles, 6 liters, a box of lime, and got drunk. In Australia, we unexpectedly found out that on the Indonesian island of Java, in the city of Surabaya, there is an Armenian church, which is not listed in any of the sources. We were sure that there is no Armenian church in Indonesia, and all of a sudden, it turns out there is one. After negotiating with several officials, Armenia and the crew received permission for 48 hours of stay in Indonesia. Very short time, given that no one knew exactly where the Church of St. Georg is, and we had to look for it. To enter a Muslim country with 30 meters high Armenian flag with a cross on the side of the ship and start inquiring about an Armenian church, an easy feeling. In addition, it was necessary to somehow communicate with the locals, and almost nobody spoke English there, and we didn't know their language. We needed help. Finally, we lucked out. It turned out that our director's classmate's husband worked at the American embassy there. They were happy to help us. We found the church. To our surprise and to our delight, the church was very well kept. Lost in the huge 2 million city, the church became a priceless discovery of the expedition. Chinese are the owners there. It is still a spiritual center. They are very respectful to this. There are signs everything is being taken care of. They were grateful to us that we came and met and talked. Armenian trace was clearly seen in this Muslim country. Inside the church, there were many Armenian inscriptions preserved on marble tablets. All of them ended in 1927. That is when ceased to exist the small Armenian community. The cemetery of Armenian clergymen, Armenian certificates are preserved inside. All that has been written and installed. The current spiritual leader of the church gave us all the documents, plans, architectural certificates related to this church. And he said something interesting. I have always waited for the owners of this territory to come here. I consider it my duty to return all of the documents to them. When we sailed away, since there was no Armenian priest, he gladly blessed our way.
We ask the Father in heaven, we pray for the Armenian ships.
Also, through his blessing, we were able to complete the journey. Cape Horn, terrible, terrifying, and fascinating at the same time. Expedition approached the Cape Horn twice. Cape Horn is magnificent. Even just the stories about how many ships sank there trying to sail around it, this particularly attracts. Many sailors are ready to risk their lives just to visit this mysterious place, mysterious and prestigious. They say that sailing around the world without passing Cape Horn would negate the honor of the circumnavigation.
Բուն աշխարհաշրջի։ Այստեղ մի քիչ ուրիշ է անցնել այդ հրվանդանի կողքով։
This is the most southern point. It is the peak of sailing. Cape Horn is famous as the graveyard of ships. Over the years, hundreds of ships were lost there. Parallels on which Cape Horn is situated are called the Furious 50s. Since it is always very windy there, big waves and rocks, because of this, the ships perished. The sails were torn, especially in the old days. The vessels were thrown on the rocks and crashed. The climate there is the worst on Earth. The weather is almost always windy and overcast. It rains almost the whole year. This is a natural phenomenon because here two oceans meet and the wind always blows in the same direction. Most sailboats needed 3 to 7 weeks to go around the Cape Horn. According to sailors, they were lucky if after that at least one mast remained unbroken on the ship. Many people think that during the storm you have to go towards the coast. No, you need to move away as far as possible from the coast, because if you lose control, the wind will carry and crash the ship on the rocks. While in the sea, there may be pitching, but the ship will remain afloat. The ships going to the west met the strong wind and current that carried them to the rocks, and the ships that went to the east were often in dense fog. The crew of Armenia faced a dilemma. Strait of Magellan would help to avoid Cape Horn. On the other hand, if you go to the Cape, the Armenian flank will not pass through the historical Strait of Magellan. The decision was adventurous, as in many cases during the journey. We had to pass not the classical way, from east to west, but the other way around, from west to east, and that was awful. At first try, we failed, we went back. There were moments when the speed reached zero and then became negative. Wind ahead, the waves hit the front. Had to repeat the entry. Sailing in the direction of the wind along the current is not difficult, but we had to go against the wind. Just imagine it took us 6 hours to cover 10 kilometers. The captain took the responsibility, he took the helm. The speed of the wind was 45 knots. It is almost 100 kilometers per hour. Imagine an island and there is a place where a ship could hide from the storm. The beam of the yacht is 6 meters and the width of the entrance is 10 to 12 meters. Have no right to make a mistake. You make a mistake, you die. When we passed Cape Horn, I felt that life might have ended there, but it was a blessing that I pulled it through with these guys. At such moments, I am happy that I have such friends and such a captain. It's like living in a parallel world. I think it is easier to travel alone. There is no responsibility for the lives of others. We all have wives, children, parents. I know everybody. I have shared bread with each one of them. It is even hard to imagine that suddenly someone could not come back home. It is a huge responsibility. After the passage to the Pacific Ocean via Cape Horn, Armenia returned to the Strait of Magellan and then continued on. It meant extra miles, but kept up the honor of Armenian navigation. We passed Cape Horn, a milestone that divides the story into before and after, an achievement that could turn your perception of the world upside down. Not only did Armenia pass it, but also completed a mission. This is the cross of our family, and my mother and I give it to you. May He bless you. Hovsep Iosifyan, an Armenian from Argentina, was born in the Turkish city of Urfa 7 years after the tragic events of 1915. He always remembered the expression on the faces of his parents when they told how the Turks locked several hundred Armenians in the church and set on fire. Many years later, Hovsep saw in a magazine the bronze cross Zahgats from Urfa church. The same cross from the same church. He commissioned the master a copy of the cross. The cross has become an heirloom of Iosifyan family. Hovsep's daughter Rosita, who is a teacher of Armenian language and literature at the Armenian school in Buenos Aires, gave the cross to the expedition Mesrop Mashtots. And this cross led the members of the expedition to the distant chapel on the island of Horn, the chapel Stella Maris, Star of the Seas. There was an Orthodox cross which Fyodor Konyukhov brought. There was a Catholic cross because mostly Catholics live in Chile. And there is now an Armenian cross. And you know, while we were fastening the cross, I was overfilled with pride. Every fixture was like a part of my history. Probably this cross has given us the strength to pass Cape Horn against the wind and waves. We had a big goal to reach Cape Horn and to install the cross. People will come, see the cross, and will learn about our country. Here in the chapel, the crew left a message that reads, "This Armenian cross is dedicated to the blessed memory of innocent victims of the war. Who better than us Armenians was to mount such a cross? Who better than us Armenians knows about innocent victims?" Armenians' share was quite a few ordeals, most tragically the genocide of Armenians in Ottoman Turkey from 1893 to 1923. Many became fugitives. Families were forced to flee their homes and settle in new places, trying to find a new homeland there. People got scared, gathering into communities around the world and forming diaspora. The roads of diaspora are anything but simple. Both history and geography of our nation are complicated. Historically, the Armenians migrated to other places in very difficult conditions, losing all they had acquired over the years. Into the long forced journeys, they took the most valuable things. And in any new place, first of all, they built chapels, churches and schools, so as not to lose faith in the sacrament of 36 letters of Mashtots. The diaspora, of course, is in foreign country, which will never replace your motherland. But diaspora, Spurg, is also like home. It is like a worldwide state made of little Armenians. Diaspora, an eternal memory of the motherland and eternal nostalgia. Arriving in any port was special for us because it was festive. The people were happy, chatting. It was very emotional.
Что эмоционально это так очень хорошо выдержано.
Greetings, Albert. What do you think? Where am I? True, in the Pacific, in Melbourne. In your Melbourne, standing next to you. We will not forget, and the future will not forget. Azaryan is in gold letters on black marble. The Armenian diaspora is on all continents. Widespread geographically, it is an organization with some elements of government. Often, these are communities with churches, schools, the media, cultural, social, and charitable institutions, and of course, with a look aspiring to Ararat for centuries. All this territory was called Artsakh, all 7 districts. There is a tombstone in Singapore, the city of Malacca. Migrated to India from New Jura and then settled in Singapore, Jacob Shamir was a successful trader. Also studied science, wrote stories. He died in 1774. In his will, he singled out the words that should be written on his tomb. I greet you who are reading these lines. Have you brought me the tidings of the freedom of my people, of which I dreamed all my life? Jacob Shamir and the entire diaspora knew and are acknowledging that foreign land will not become a home. Have you brought me the tidings of the freedom of my people, of which I dreamed all my life? The hoisted tricolor sail serves different purposes. Under this sail, the crew just has to perform all their tasks brilliantly. How about the emotions of people waiting for the yacht on the shore? One lives in a foreign country far away from motherland, waiting for a token from his country embodied in a sailboat. And there comes the long-awaited ship with a sail flag, symbol of the motherland. The main driving force for Armenians around the world is the love for their historical homeland. And this love is brought down from generation to generation. One cannot help paying attention to these eyes of the children of the diaspora who came meet the crew. Surprised, curious eyes full of emotion. Children dance national dances, bring bread and salt, let three-color balloons fly. They still are not aware of, do not comprehend the importance of the moment. They feed on the emotions of the adults. But the time will come and this vivid childhood memory for many of them will grow into love for the motherland. Is it not this the most important thing, children's eyes full of emotions? Have you brought me the tidings of the freedom of my people, of which I dreamed all my life? The crew of the yacht Armenia brought him the tidings 3 centuries later. Here in Armenia, we do not fully appreciate the importance of this journey. In New Zealand, the Armenians were crying looking at the flag. Even just because of this, it was worth sailing to New Zealand. Your visit conveyed great emotions to us, brought us closer to our native land. Our community has somehow lost hope. But you came, and looking into the eyes of my friends, I see their tears of joy. It proves that we are Armenians, and our Armenian spirit is sacred, and it will remain forever in us. Only we have Ararat. God is with you, with your children. Remember your ancestors and think about the future. In the diaspora, everybody waits impatiently for the ship with the tricolor sail. It brings the dream of the scattered destinies to every Armenian in the world. Everybody is hard at work on the sailboat. Of course, there is its own special life. Having been in the vast expanses of the ocean and at the same time on the confined deck space, the crew became a strong team where everyone has their own responsibilities and each can count on the support of a friend.
Все участники этой экспедиции Армении, они плавали.
All the members of the expedition Armenia have sailed on Cilicia. The crew has already been formed. All knew each other, knew the strengths and weaknesses. Never there were any serious conflicts.
Никогда у нас никаких конфликтов серьезных не было.
Watches, weather reports, preparations for the next meeting with the diaspora.
На первом этапе плавания
The ship's cook was Samvel Sargsyan during the first half of the journey. He was my buddy, my friend. I had in fact brought him to the ship. We were heading to Brazil from Venezuela. The weather was very bad. The cook stumbled and fell, couldn't hold on. Sight of his body hurt. We laid him down. It was very painful for him, especially during pitching.
когда мы пришли в Форталезу,
When we arrived in Fortaleza, a local Armenian family met us. One of them was a doctor.
в главе которой был
He
врач,
immediately took Samuel to do an X-ray.
рентген показал,
The X-rays revealed that 4 of his ribs were broken.
был обнаружен очень нехороший диагноз. Мы решили
But most importantly, he was diagnosed with something very bad.
Ереван. Здесь был
We
вопрос
decided to send Samuel to Yerevan. There was the problem of flying from Fortaleza to São Paulo and from there to Europe, from Europe to Armenia. It was very difficult because of his broken ribs. It was very hard for him to move around.
И, в общем, эту тяжелую задачу решил
This problem was solved by Mr. Balayan.
К сожалению, конечно, уже
Samvel arrived in Yerevan. Unfortunately, nothing could help. Samvel died in fall.
он
He
совсем
got
не
along with everybody, never quarreled, could always compromise.
не ругался, всегда приходили к общему
He
знаменателю.
was a great specialist, most importantly, sympathetic friend and exceptional person.
В общем, исключительная личность.
After a break, we set sail again with the new cook. I found out that the former cook has had an accident and the crew needs a new cook. At first it was difficult, but then I made friends with the crew. Got accustomed to the sea. I had never sailed before. During the first days I was lucky. The weather was good, the sea calm, but even in this weather I was sick. Then, step by step, my body got used to it. During the 2 years, we celebrated all the holidays on the yacht, birthdays and the New Year.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Balayan. Happy birthday to you. Arif, 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 Arif. Так, подожди.
Մենք ծովում ապրում էինք։
We lived in the sea.
Մեկի ծնունդներ,
Somebody's birthday party, someone's child is born. Life went on while we were on our way. When Wahak's son was born, the crew, of course, didn't let it pass and celebrated together. I do not remember what was going on with me. The guys opened a bottle of cognac right away. They were rejoicing and congratulating, and I was trying to grasp what just happened in my life. For the sailors crossing the equator, there is another mandatory celebration, meeting with Neptune during the crossing of the equator. The crew of Armenia met with the guardian of the seas twice. Everybody got baptized in the sea.
Bravo!
The ship had to be repaired several times. The engine failed, the sails were torn by the storm winds. There was a time when we didn't have enough water. We miscalculated. You sweat all the time. There is no wind to move the sailboat. Before entering the Panama Canal, we were delayed for 5 days. You cannot imagine what we experienced there. Extremely hot place. We were not allowed to go to the city and couldn't sail through. It turns out the reason is that our ship is small. There are huge ships which are 1,000 times heavier, so they pay 1,000 times more. It is unfair. What kind of rules are these? Your turn is up. You should be allowed to go through. Once the crew of Armenia received a storm warning during the still. It turned out that it was not due to a storm or any other whims of nature. The pirates. The problem of safe passage from the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea was a very, very serious one. Najdah said, "Excel yourself." Even the sailboat got used to overperforming, no matter how difficult. But there were times, especially when approaching the finish line, that we had no idea how we were going to carry on. We were stopped and told that we have to change the route, go around Africa, that we cannot pass straight through the Arabian Sea because of the pirates. All the time we were getting more and more information about what was happening. Then we realized times have changed. As if this is not the 21st century, since pirates can block the way. That military ships were needed for escorting small craft. During the last stage of the journey, the team had to encounter the Arabian Spring. It was horrible to see what was happening on the streets of Cairo. This warm country had cold breath.
Աջ կողմից
Middle East on the right, coast of Africa on the left. There is war everywhere.
պատերազմ է։ Հասնում ենք մի կետ, որտեղ անպայման
We reached the location where we definitely had to be. It is Cairo, Egypt. And there we can see hot steam coming off of the pavement.
արյան գոլորշի։
Steam from blood. At the meetings in Egypt, there were calls to destroy the pyramids, Sphinx statues, to destroy everything old. Somewhat it was a clash of histories. While many are calling to destroy the old, for the expedition Mesrop Mashdod, it was important to gather any facts of our history. Tower of Babel collapsed due to lack of understanding. People died because they couldn't communicate with each other. Today, our planet is facing a similar challenge.
Ես նույնիսկ արդեն գրում եմ։
I wrote in my diary, enough, I cannot write about the sea anymore, or about the guys, there is no sense. I have to write about what is happening in the world.
Երկրագնդի վրա
O Lord, save our earth. Give us a wisdom to understand each other. The expedition has fulfilled all its objectives. The scientific part of them amounted to meeting with communities, collecting information on churches, and recording it all.
Ժամանակը ինքը կորոշի թե
Time will tell whether this was important, but as a documentary maker, I feel obliged to record this story. The flag of independent Armenia on a sailboat for the first time in maritime history has passed through the Panama Canal, crossed the equator for the first time and sailed to the southern hemisphere for the first time. 3 oceans, 5 continents, 2 meetings with Neptune and covering the distance equal to twice the length of the equator for a total of 80,000 kilometers. The sailboat entered the Mediterranean Sea and finished the journey.
Ամենալավորը
The best day? It is the first day and the last day.
ամենաուրախորը
The best day is when you are finally on the ship.
ամենաուրախորը է։
Գիտեք, երբ որ ջուրը վերջանում է եւ անձրև է գալիս,
When you run out of water and it rains, it is the best day. When you go down to the shore and there is connection, you can talk with your family, with your child. This is the nicest day.
այն ինչ որ ծովից առաջ էր,
Everything that was before sea was long forgotten and there was only the sea.
հիմա մնացել է այդ մենակ ծովը։
գիտակցել, որ դու կարողացել ես մի կողմից,
To realize that you were able to do it on one hand, on the other hand, that it is done and it belongs to your people. Willing or not, it becomes part of the history.
Հարկ եւ գոհություն Աստծուն,
Praise the Lord that you went around the 5 continents, dedicated your journey to Armenian mothers who treasured our alphabet, our nation, our hearth, and our identity. You met with each community in diaspora and gathered huge cultural evidence for future generations. Let the Lord be with you in your patriotic endeavors. The Lord is with you.
Հարկ Աստծուն եւ թող Աստված օրհնի ձեր բոլոր բարի ազգանվեր, հայրենանվեր ծրագրերը։ Աստված ինձ
We tried to get blessing for each part of our journey. Looking back from a distance of many years, I was very well aware of those moments when we saw close to death. The depth, the bottom of the ocean. Armenia are already waiting in Cyprus. People in Cyprus were waiting for Armenia. The sacrament of the sail the flag, sail the inspirer, sail the dream remained in each of them. And so there will be another chance to hoist the sail and head for a new dream. And there will be the wind in the face and salty splash and the dolphins, good companions of sailors. The President of Armenia, Serge Sargsyan, and the President of Republic of Cyprus, Dimitris Christofias, met the brave crew of Armenia. Dear Mr. President of the Republic of Armenia, as part of the expedition named after Saint Mesrop Mashtots, the sailboat Armenia, starting from the Mediterranean Sea through the Strait of Gibraltar, went across the Atlantic, Pacific and Indian Oceans. We visited 5 continents, where from long ago lived and still live our compatriots. The crew fulfilled all the tasks assigned to them. Sailing through the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, the sailboat re-entered the waters of the Mediterranean, and so the age-old dream came true. The first in the history of Armenia circumnavigation. On behalf of the crew, reports the head of the expedition, Zori Balayan.
Εκ μέρους του πληρώματος την αναφορά την έκανε ο επικεφαλής της εκστρατείας, ο Ζόρι Μπαλαγιάν.